All right, so here we are, healing by design, male hormones. Male hormones.
I need to know this because my husband's in heaven.
Right, exactly. For all the men in your life. Yeah, so I continue to joke about how men don't come to the health classes, men don't come in to see me. I know men know they have testosterone, but I don't know if they know or believe that they have much for hormones beyond that. So
They think they're so macho.
they think they're so macho. Men think they're so tough. The reality is I think the devil's done a good job of making men pretty weak.
Yeah.
So, and I'm one of them, so I can be okay with saying that. All right, well, I'm going to do a quick prayer. Lord, thank you for this time together. Help us to understand more about you, about hormones, about how you designed our bodies, the body, soul, and spirit, how it all works together, Lord, that we wouldn't forget the body, that we'd honor this vessel, this temple that you've given us, and we'd understand at a deeper level how it affects the rest of our walk with you and how it affects our mind and our emotions and how we think. And this role of hormones and the role that hormones play in our health and how crucially important that is. In Jesus' name. So I start with saying men have hormones. Men have hormones. Men and women have the same hormones. I found that was fascinating when I first learned about that. But some of the hormones you only think of exclusive to men or exclusive to women, like women have testosterone. And a lot of women know they have testosterone because a lot of women deal with hormonal issues and they're getting their hormone balances, getting their hormones checked, and they're finding if their testosterone is low or high. But men often rarely check anything. You know, my joke is a man doesn't come in to see me unless his wife made him, or he's actually dying and in pain to the point where he wants some help or relief. But most men, sadly, aren't into health. And they should be, because men should be strong and fit and healthy. And so men and women have the same hormones. So men have estrogen. Men have progesterone. Men have oxytocin. You've heard of that one. That's the love hormone. That's the hormone that's released when women are breastfeeding their children. But it's kind of one of the love hormones that when men and women are in love, they release this oxytocin, and it's kind of it's the hormone that's released when you're in love. And so men have all these same hormones. It's just in different proportions. God knows how he designed you. God knows if you're a man or a woman. God knows that men need more testosterone and women need less, and women need more estrogen and progesterone, and vice versa. So it's really cool about God's creation when you take maca or deer antler or some of these supplements that are known to maybe help with women's hormone balancing, or maybe they're known to increase testosterone. Well, whether you're a man or a woman and you take that product, it's going to balance your body. So for example, you can take herbs that increase testosterone in men, but a woman takes it, it's not going to increase her testosterone. It's not going to cause her to start growing hair and get a deep voice. It's because God created you. He knows if you're man or woman, and God created the things that God created on the earth are going to work synergistically or symbiotically with your body based on your design, because there's intelligence to God's creation. And that's the problem with synthetics, which I'm going to talk about a little bit. You know, doing synthetic things like testosterone and stuff like that. Oh my gosh, we have a male. That is, praise God, my good friend. We'll call him MK. So, welcome, brother.
Thank you.
All right, so yes, we were just brief summary. What we just talked about is that men have hormones. Even though we don't talk about them much, they have testosterone, and they actually have all the same hormones that women do. You have estrogen and progesterone and oxytocin, which is the love hormone. So that's kind of where we're at. And I kind of joked in here, I put in my notes, like, you remember being a teenager. When you're a teenager and you go through a hormonal change, you are very full aware that you have hormones, because things start happening, and you start liking girls or boys, or you start getting acne, or weird things start happening, or a woman starts growing breasts or whatever. Like, we're aware that we have hormones. And again, I just joke with men a lot because men don't talk about it a lot. They don't talk about it, but it's interesting. They're all running to the doctor and they're getting testosterone creams and doing all these things. They just never talk about it because men are macho, like you said. Men are macho. They want to be tough. They don't have any health issues. So All right, so why do we talk about male hormones? And it's funny because I laid out this class list, and I'm like, I'm going to do this male hormones class, and I can pretty much guarantee you that no men will probably show up. Now, praise God, we did have one show up. And again, it's sad because men have prostate issues, they have anger issues, they have depression, they struggle with anxiety. I've seen people, I've seen men that struggle with all kinds of deep, deep issues, and a lot of them are hormonal issues. But again, because of maybe labels of our society, or maybe that belief that they should be strong and tough and fight through it or whatever, men just don't talk about their health or their hormones. Maybe the only person they do is maybe they might even not even talk to their spouse about it, but they might go talk to their doctor about it, hope that the doctor can do something about it. That's a dangerous situation to believe your doctor can do something for your hormones. We've talked about that with the women's hormones. But it is a big issue. Men often ignore it. The medical community often ignores it. Men usually push through their issues, again, the tough guy image. A lot of times we'll call it a midlife crisis. So a guy will go through a midlife crisis. So what does that even mean? I don't even know, what even causes that. I felt like I had one of those in my early 30s, but that was pre-Jesus. So who knows what caused that? So a lot of times, though, it's this hormonal issue. And again, the main hormone, of course, we'll talk about today, and of course, what most men know about is the testosterone issue. And men will go through what we call a midlife crisis, or some kind of crisis, and not realize that it's hormones or it's a testosterone dropping.
What age is that usually?
It varies. They say, the proverbial they, they say that after, I've seen some things that say after the age of 30, but everybody agrees by after the age of 40 that testosterone starts to decrease. I would say it's probably more like 30, and they say the average drop is about 1% a year. So if you're 30 and you start to drop 1%, by the time you're 80, you're pretty low on testosterone. But we know, just as a general rule of thumb, that it starts to drop in men for sure in their 40s. And that's actually the next thing I was going to talk about. I think it's natural and it's normal for testosterone to drop to some extent, but not at the epidemic proportions we're seeing today. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how lifestyle is affecting men's hormones. Men are wiped out of testosterone. I've seen young men, late teen, early 20s, who don't have testosterone. And that should never happen. And really, anybody in their 30s or even 40s shouldn't have low testosterone. And really, if you look at the reality of that it's lifestyle issues that cause this rapid decrease of testosterone, then I don't think there's any reason guys in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s shouldn't still be full of life and stamina and vigor and strength and hormones and testosterone. I mean, we can look at obviously the biblical examples of even post-flood. I mean, people having, who knows, 40, 50, 60, 80 children into their 90s or 100s. It wasn't uncommon, but again, today our culture's changed so much. But so it's not just age. Does age play a role? Absolutely. Is an 80-year-old guy going to have the testosterone of a 21-year-old man? No. But there are 80-year-old men who have great levels of testosterone compared to other 80-year-old men, and compared to 50-year-old men, and compared to 40-year-old men, if we take care of ourselves, if we take care of our hormones. So there is actually a word for male hormone imbalance. So everybody's heard of menopause, right? Andropause. Andropause. So male hormones that are responsible for male functions are called androgens or androgynous hormones. So andropause is actually a medical term, and I don't like medical terms, you know that, but it is a medical term for men going through hormonal changes, which it's just a drop in androgynous hormones. The main ones are DHEA, DHT, and testosterone. Those are the main male hormones that drop, that really affect men's behavior, their mood, their function, and so it's called andropause. So DHEA is called the joy hormone. It's also the stress hormone. It's produced in the adrenal glands, and it's crucially important for men. And again, I mentioned the other one, testosterone, DHT. A lot of women get high testosterone. DHT.
Is testosterone
No, it's a different hormone.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, but it's an androgen. It's an androgynous hormone. And so a lot of women, for example, when they have hirsutism or the excessive hair growth or high testosterone levels, they'll take products that are DHT blockers because they have, it's somehow related to testosterone. I'm not exactly sure, but they actually take products that block DHT and excessive testosterone from forming in the body. So when you feel like, because I do see some men, I say that my clientele is 90% women. And the 10% men, usually the wife made them come. Not always. But I have seen multiple men who said, man, I just don't feel like I felt like when I was in my 20s. And they don't want to just assume it's age. And I think that's wise. Because again, we've created a culture that it's okay to get sick. It's okay to be weak. It's okay to gain weight. It's okay to have our knees not work anymore and have to get surgery. It's okay to have low testosterone. Like, we've just accepted that, like, God wasn't a great designer and the body's just going to degenerate and waste away. And I believe it's the opposite. I believe that we were designed to be eternal. Because Adam and Eve were designed to be eternal. Free of sin, we're eternal. And so clearly there's sin issues that is causing the degeneration of the human body. And that's why I try to bring this issue into health and nutrition, so we can't just assume that we're falling apart and that's just normal. Because God's design is not to fall apart. God's design is for us to thrive and, again, to live forever. So clearly there's some type of lack of alignment with God's creation. We can call it sin. But we are doing things that are causing dysfunction in God's creation and design. And testosterone would be no different. You know, you shouldn't be 40 years old and have no strength, no vitality, testosterone levels that are at the bottom of the barrel. There's something in your lifestyle that's creating that to happen. So I wanted to maybe talk about some of those things and some of those symptoms of a man knowing he has low testosterone. Because I guarantee you there are men who have struggled for 10, 20, 30 years. I can guarantee you it's affected their family. I can guarantee you it's caused depression and anger issues and anxiety, probably caused them to get on medications, and probably destroyed families because they didn't understand that they have low testosterone. Like, somebody drinks alcohol and they become very angry and it consumes their life, you know it's destroying your life. But a lot of times there's other issues going on, and all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, we're super angry, we're super depressed, we have tons of anxiety. You know, as Christians, you know, a lot of times we just assume it's some kind of a spirit or a demon or something like that, and we just lost touch with the way God created and designed the body, and how crucially important it is for the body to function the way God designed it, including with these hormones. So when you have low testosterone, fatigue is a big one. Depression, absolutely. Weight gain, and I use that term, well, I shouldn't use it. It might sound kind of derogatory. So let's just say men who look like they have breasts. I mean, the term is man boobs. Like, you guys have heard that term. So I don't want to sound like I'm being like, what's the word? Like,
I'm looking down at
yeah, right.
little one.
I don't want to sound like I'm being degrading by any way, shape, or form. But men are growing breasts. Men are growing breasts. And there's a term that people joke about, you know, but men are doing things that are causing estrogenic activity in their body that's causing them to actually grow breasts. Muscle loss, anxiety, loss of sexual function and libido. Why is Viagra and other whatever you call them, erectile function drugs, some of the top-selling drugs in the world and in America? Because men have these issues and they don't want to address it. They want to just take something to fix it. Extremely dangerous. I mean,
Terrible side effects.
terrible side effects. I mean, there's a reason that there's these warnings, right? You know, there's guys on the beach and they're so happy and healthy, and then there's all these warnings about, like, go to your doctor if all these things happen to you. It's bad, bad news. And so loss of sexual function and libido is a huge one. And also that hits men right in their pride button too, and like if they lose sexual function and libido, right? just overall like strength, vigor, vitality, a lack of desire, so a lack of sexual desire. Fertility issues. So we see a lot of men have sperm count issues. They have testosterone issues. The couple's not getting pregnant. We falsely assume it's the woman. Sure, is it the woman sometimes? It absolutely is. But is it the man? Absolutely it is. And it's hard to know unless you get some testing done. But oftentimes I see couples not be able to get pregnant, assume it's the woman, go do some test, find out it's the man, and then you can, if you know what's going on, you can do something about it. Hair loss, another big one, alopecia. A lot of men struggle with hair loss. Rogaine, which is just a totally weird story because it used to be a blood pressure medication gone wrong because of all the side effects, and then they found out it somehow caused hair to grow in the human body, and they started giving men Rogaine for hair loss. It's just weird. The medical system is just weird. One of the main statements I want to say today is that we often mistake low testosterone for aging. So, again, that's a mistake, because if these things start happening, there could be a reason. There is a reason. That's like one of the main things I promote in my classes is that it's cause and effect. We're functioning based off of God's natural created order from Genesis 1. Everything he spoke into existence and set into motion, we're either aligned with that or we're working against it. And so most of the issues we're working with are working against God's alignment of natural creation. And so if we have these symptoms going on, there's a reason. There's cause and effect. And so we don't want to mistake low testosterone for aging and be like, well, I'm 50 now, so it makes sense that I don't have sexual desire anymore. My muscles are weak, but I'm in my 50s now. I mean, often you guys hear that? I mean, that's like normal conversation when you get around people to talk about all your woes and your ailments and your struggles. And again, I think it takes the focus off what should be our focus. So we don't want to mistake low testosterone for aging. So causes. Number one I'm going to put is food. The biggest reason men have poor testosterone function is going to be the biggest reason people have poor health. It's going to be the biggest reason women are struggling with hormonal imbalances. It's poor diet. God's creation and design uses vitamins, minerals, amino acids from proteins, water, certain nutrients, because we're designed out of dust of the earth, certain nutrients for every cell to work, for the body to fire and to have energy, for neurotransmitters to function properly, for hormones to function properly. It requires those elements. As soon as you start filling the body with processed foods, white flour, white sugar, fried foods, these things work against God's design of the cells or of the neurotransmitters. I mean, we just did a training with our staff this morning on heavy metals. When you have mercury fillings and you have heavy metals in the body, it interferes with the mitochondria of the cell to be able to detox properly, and people get sick and they never get well because there's things in the body and in the cells that God did not design to go into the body that's blocking the ability of the cell to function properly. Why do we eat sugar and junk food and we feel junky afterwards, or we feel tired? It depends on the person and their health. Some people are out for days after they eat bad. Some people just feel junky for a couple hours, so no big deal, go on about life. But always those processed foods that aren't of God's design are going to interfere with the function of how God designed the body. Simple example, I've said it 100 times, but I'll say it again. God created the earth, he created us, he gave us a garden, and that was our food. All animals in nature, if they honor God's creation and design, they live into old age. They die of old age. Human beings don't die of old age. Human beings die of disease. All diseases of man. And the only animals that die prematurely are the animals that we take care of, right? Dogs and cats get cancer, but moose in the wild don't. Why? They live off of God's creation. Our animals are living off of man's creation. And so we do the same thing. We think we're so different, but if we dishonor God's laws of creation and design, we will develop sickness and disease in our body. We will struggle with fertility issues. We will struggle with all these diseases that we're seeing that have come upon us. And it's not like God didn't warn us about it in Deuteronomy. So food is a big deal. And I pick on men a little bit, A, because I am one and I've been through the struggles, but I really feel like the enemy, the devil, has done a great job of making men flippant, passive, not apathetic, not caring about how we live our lives, not living intentional lives, just eating sweets and candy and junk food and whatever we want and barbecue and like not even caring about our bodies. Which again certainly was never of God's heart of creation. I mean, Daniel, over 2,000 years ago, chose not to eat the king's delicacies, and look what we have available to us now. It's just junk, and we just eat it like it's no big deal. And men are struggling with all these issues that I mentioned, and blaming it on what? Life, genetics, maybe, old age. Again, there's reasons these things are happening. So I pick on guys, especially like, the big overweight beer bellies. Some people even their identity is wrapped up in their weight. In some cultures it's expected to be overweight, and it's part of their identity. And food is part of their identity. And I just think about how God really designed men. I mean, what did God design men for? To be strong, to be warriors, to protect, to lead, to serve. Okay, you're a 350-pound man, and you can blame your thyroid or whatever you want for your weight issue, but how much are you able to save somebody who needs to be saved, from a car accident? Or we live in comfortable times. I'll never forget what a prophet, he came to town one time, he said something that I'll never forget, is he said, peace has made us weak. Why do we eat for comfort? Why do we entertain ourselves all day, every day? And I'm specifically talking about men, because peace has made us weak. Now, if we lived in times of the Civil War, the American Revolution, if you want to get motivated, watch Patriot, watch Braveheart, see what God designed men for. Okay, and all we do today, and I'm just as guilty. I'm not, the pot calling the kettle black, but we're designed to be fit, and we're designed to be warriors, and we're designed to be strong, and we're designed to serve others, not serve ourselves. You're an overweight man, I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it, you're serving yourself. You're not serving others. And that's not what God's purpose and intention was for you. So I really want people to dig deep. And the reason I pick on men so much is because women's hormones are so much more complicated that there's definitely a grace for anybody. I mean, man or woman. Men are overweight. They know they're struggling with food addiction. It's not like it's a secret. And they're struggling, and there's sincerity and heart and grace for that. But women's hormones are a lot more complex. And when I see men that are overweight, I really struggle with that, because men, and I've seen it dozens of times. Men and women go on the same health program, change their diet, 30 days. The man lost 35 pounds and the woman lost 4, and she's ticked. And it's the hormonal issue. Their hormones are more complicated, and the devil's done even a better job at messing their bodies up and their hormones up. Men, if they do the right things, if they exercise a little bit, if they stop eating the sugars and the sweets and the junk a little bit, the weight just falls off. I really have very little grace or excuse for overweight men, because they really don't have to do a lot to get healthy. The other reason I really harp on the weight related to men is because, and again, just look throughout history. Overweight people were people who had excess. They were kings. They were royalty. The common people were almost never overweight unless they just had excess and abundance. But the other reason I pick on this issue is because I care about men. And what's going on in men is this estrogenic effect, where their bodies are high in estrogen. Estrogen stores in the fat cells. Estrogen stores in fat. So if a man is eating the wrong foods, heavy foods, processed foods, lots of soy, deep fried foods in soybean oil, that's estrogenic. You know what one of the worst estrogenic things is a guy can put in his body? Beer. So again, we have been advertised to, we've been marketing to that drinking beer is cool. Drinking beer makes you look young and healthy and I guess really sexy, and the women love you when you drink beer. And nothing could be further from the truth. It's alcohol. It messes up our mind. It's full of gluten that causes all kinds of food allergies and food sensitivities, and it's really high in hops, and hops is estrogenic. And so the whole jokes about beer bellies and man boobs, they're real things destroying what God designed a man to be. And what God designed a man to be is to not be overweight, to not have breasts, to not have estrogenic. Men are being feminized. I'm just going to say that. Men are being turned into women. I mean, look at the growth of homosexuality. Men are being feminized, and we're allowing it to happen because of our food choices, all the things that we're putting into our bodies. So if men lose weight, they'll lose the synthetic estrogen. Make the beer belly go away. You get rid of the synthetic estrogen. Testosterone levels will increase when a man loses weight because the body's trying to compensate with your weight, increases the estrogen, it's going to lower your testosterone. So one of the easiest ways men can increase testosterone is just lose the weight. And you're going to feel better, more strength, more vitality, more energy, feel more like working out, all that good stuff. I would say the main dangerous things food-wise for anybody to eat, but especially a man for the estrogenic effect, would be beer specifically, but all alcohol, and all sugar, which alcohol is a sugar. And it's just because it destroys the body and destroys hormones and blocks the ability of hormones to get, what's the word? I want to say transported, but I can't think of the word. But anyway, the ability of the hormones to metabolize properly in the body. Let's just say that. So think of men with diabetes, epidemic issue, high insulin levels. These things negatively affect hormones. Okay? Diabetes is simply from overconsumption of sugars and processed foods. It's a man-made invented disease. All right, so xenoestrogens. That's the second big cause. So food is the first biggest cause. Again, the beer, the alcohol, the sugar, the soy would be the other one I'd mention. All processed foods, deep fat fried foods, food fried in soybean oil, on down the list. It's destroying hormones. Xenoestrogens, that's a term for synthetic estrogens. So the reasons herbicides and pesticides kill insects is because it completely disrupts their hormonal cycle to the point where the animals die. So I put beer in here, but it's not really a xenoestrogen. A xenoestrogen is something that mimics estrogen in our body, but it's a synthetic. So plastics, you've heard of all the issues with the plastic containers. If you heat or freeze plastic, it releases BPA, bisphenol A, and different things that are hormone mimickers or estrogen mimickers. Herbicides, pesticides are hormone mimickers. Birth control pills are hormone mimickers because it's synthetic estrogen. The meat and the dairy, all the antibiotics and the hormones in meat and dairy, and that's a big deal today, not eating meat and dairy filled with hormones and antibiotics. Why are girls starting puberty at 8 years old when it's supposed to be 12 and 13? And why are men being feminized? And I think it's a tactic of the enemy to dehumanize men and women, but to feminize men. I mean, tell me the devil doesn't win when men want to become women and women want to become men. I mean, talk about backwards from God's purpose in creation and design. And I've talked about this in class before. Men are being born with female tendencies. Men are being born without genitalia. They have a term for it. They call it ambiguous genitalia. Children are being born and they don't know if they're male or female. You want to know the statistic on that? 1 in 1,500. That means thousands of children are born every year and they don't know if they're male or female. So that's a big deal. And why would that happen? Why, with the amazing design of God's creation, could that possibly happen? It's these reasons. It's our food choices. It's the synthetic toxic chemicals we're putting in their body that's altering DNA function, that's altering hormonal function. And the term they use when they call them intersex. When these children are born without genitalia, they don't know if they're male or female, they call them intersex. And then there's also children born that are hermaphrodites. Have you heard that term? That means you have both male and female organs. So, again, the devil is doing a lot of damage that most Christians are completely blind to. Because we still don't care what we eat. We don't care how we treat our bodies. We don't care that we're using all these chemicals till it happens to you or till it happens to somebody in your family or till it happens to somebody we know. But we need to wake up. Because if we're going to start to create and produce healthy new children the way God designed it, we have to change our lives. We have to change our food choices. We have to change the things we're putting in and on our bodies. Because these things are destroying human life. It's destroying human life. And we've got all kinds of Christians praying against abortion. But what about these children and these things that are happening to human beings because of the way the devil is manipulating the human body? You know, we haven't even talked about genetically modified foods. So all of these things, again, are just the tools that the enemy is using to destroy human life. So I was talking about the hormones in meat and dairy. So ideally, you want to get hormone-free meat and dairy products. Herbicides, pesticides, plastics. We kind of covered that. Exercise is another cause. To have proper hormonal function, you got to have good blood flow. You got to exercise. Stress is a big one. And so think of the cycle. Think of the cycle men and women are in. You know, this is a class about men, but think of the cycle. Okay? A guy goes to work all day. He's stressed to the max. That's typical, right? Men and women are both stressed to the max today. But a lot of men, you know, they work corporate jobs. They're the breadwinners of the family. They're supposed to work 8, 10, 12 hours a day. They're stressed to the max. Well, when you're stressed, DHEA drops, which is your joy hormone, and you can't produce sex hormones properly, so maybe you're not desiring, you know, your wife or sexual intimacy or whatever, and you're stressed out, so these hormones are dropping, and then you go home, and what do you do to relax?
Watch television.
Yeah, and drink beer. So you guys just covered it. You watch TV, you eat, and you drink beer. The 3 worst possible things you could do for your health. And people live their lives this way and wonder why their bodies aren't working, wonder why they're not motivated, wonder why they have a heart to do God's work and God's kingdom work, but they have no drive and no motivation to function as they're supposed to. And so then, you know, this whole cycle starts. They're stressed, they're anxious, they're drinking beer, it causes this estrogenic effect, and men have become, not all of them, I know a lot of amazing men, but in general, the enemy's done a good job at making men apathetic and lazy. And again, peace has made us weak. So when times get tough, I think things will change. But what I'm really encouraging all people to do, but especially men, is to start now. And the only way you can do it is to live an intentional life. And I tell you, when I was preparing for this class and knowing what I was going to say, I got myself very convicted. Because I eat pretty good and I stay pretty lean, but I haven't been working out and I haven't been doing a lot of things that I know I should do and living as intentional of a life as I should, you know, in prayer, you know, taking care of my body, all that. So it's definitely convicted me a little bit. But let's just say this, for what's coming, and for those of us who, you know, are in tune with, you know, the present time that we're in, shall we say, and what's coming, how much impact when things get tough, and let's say war comes to America, or things go south, or things go bad, or there's internal strife, who's going to be ready? Who's going to be ready? Do we not think we need a healthy, strong physical body for what's coming? You're deceived if you think that. Never in times of war did people just sit around and eat all day and play video games and do the things that we're doing today. I mean, look at our youth. You know, they're drinking alcohol, they're into pornography, they're watching video games. There's no motivation for life unless they find Jesus, and even when they find Jesus, it's still hard to find the motivation because all these sensual earthly pleasures are available to them. And so it's really a struggle for God to raise up men. So I'm just going to say that right now. God is calling men to live an intentional life. In eating right, in exercising, in stewarding your bodies, in prayer, in thinking about your family and your wife and your children first over your own pleasure, your own desire to eat what you want and do what you want, or entertain yourself or whatever. We know men are struggling with gambling and alcohol addiction and all of these different things. It's just really sad. So that was the stress component. The dangers of synthetic testosterone. This is what men are doing. They're taking drugs. They're taking Cialis. They're taking synthetic testosterone. And I've touched on this many, many, many times, but when you're taking something synthetic, you're putting a petrochemical, a coal tar-based chemical in the human body, which was not God's design or creation. It's mimicking molecularly God's design, and you just can't do that because God is smarter than us, and his ways are higher than our ways. And we can't just look at the molecular structure of something, recreate it in a laboratory, and think everything's going to be okay. So this is what happens when you put synthetic testosterone in your body. And it would be similar to the women doing the hormone replacement therapy as well, because most of that stuff is synthetic. First thing it does is it shuts off the pituitary gland, because the pituitary gland is what creates follicle-stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormones, oxytocin, and different hormones that are precursors to adrenal hormones, which create steroid hormones, which testosterone is a steroid hormone. And most of those steroid hormones are produced in the adrenals, and then for the men, the testes. And so if you take something synthetic, it shuts down your own glands that are supposed to produce those hormones. Because even though the body's like, that's weird, that's synthetic, but you kind of look like something my God created, but you're kind of not, it recognizes it, the molecular structure of it, and therefore tells the body you don't need to produce this anymore. It happens when people take thyroid medication. I mean, this is one of the 500 reasons not to take man-made pharmaceutical drugs. So it shuts off the pituitary gland, and what happens with that is men are not told this by their doctor. 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, their testicles shrink. They weren't told that. The doctor didn't tell them that was going to happen. That's not cool. If I'm a guy, that's not cool, that my testicles shrink. Sperm, they stop producing sperm. These are side effects from taking synthetic testosterone. It might be on the label, but doctors certainly, rarely are they telling people. There's a professor at the University of California that says taking synthetic testosterone is the equivalent of chemical castration. And it says they become less of a man not doing what they're designed to do. And there's a huge black market for this stuff. Guys are embarrassed, they're tough, they're macho. They're not macho anymore. They're weak. Me included, we're weak because of the times that we live in. We have to live intentional. Men don't want to tell people about it. They don't even want to tell their doctor about it, so they're buying it on the internet. They're buying it on the black market. Steroids used to be a big, big, big deal until it finally got banned in sports and things. The other big issue with taking synthetic estrogen or synthetic anything is it rapidly increases your risk for cancer, and specifically prostate cancer. And think of how many men have prostate cancer. And think of how many men have had their prostate removed. I know many of them, sadly. God did not design us to have our organs taken out. But the reason the synthetic estrogen plays a role in prostate health is the prostate uses testosterone to function. So if you take synthetic testosterone, all of a sudden now your prostate is trying to use synthetic testosterone to do what the prostate's supposed to do. And that's going to increase cancer risk. And again, men have no clue. Men are diagnosed with prostate cancer. Oh, my doctor said this. I take this medication. Oh my gosh, it's this, that. Go get it removed. Okay, I got the cancer removed. Everything's okay. Again, no understanding of how God designed the human body. And there's no knowledge or wisdom in our world or in our medical community explaining to people what's really happening to them. And again, I'm just jealous for God's creation of the human body, because I know 95% of what's happening in the medical community is breaking God's heart, and we're doing very little about it. Especially as people suffer, as men suffer, as families suffer. When a man gets prostate cancer, his whole family suffers. Everybody suffers. So If you look on the internet, they will tell you testosterone causes cancer. Testosterone doesn't cause cancer. Synthetic, man-made petrochemicals, known in the Bible as pharmakia, causes cancer. It's poison. We're poisoning ourselves, and we're letting doctors do it. You know how much men spend sometimes to take synthetic hormones and testosterone? They sometimes spend thousands of dollars a month. And I said this in class before, and it's sad, but we are paying a demonic system to kill ourselves. We're giving thousands and thousands of dollars to a system designed for money and to destroy human life that takes our money away and kills us in the process. So tell me the enemy is not behind the medical system. Nobody will ever change my opinion on that. So, so man-made chemicals mimic God's creation. So you can tell, you can increase testosterone naturally. You can put things in your body and help your body to work the way God designed it to work. I mentioned one of the simplest things men can do is just lose weight. Get the extra estrogen out that's storing in your fat and naturally increase your testosterone just by doing that one simple little thing. So how did God design it? So I put besides diet and exercise, there are herbs that we can take that naturally increase testosterone. And I try to bring a little bit of a show and tell. So I got a few things today that I'm going to show you. And the first thing is let's just talk about testosterone. Now, this is I see it as God's love for this. I certainly have not figured out why God created everything he did and the reason he did it. I know he created it all for us, and I think that's cool. But I think it's interesting. I don't know, I'm just throwing this totally theological thing out there. I just think it's interesting that God designed us to be eternal. The human body, when Adam and Eve were designed to be eternal. It's only through sin that we started dying. Yet he created all these things in our earth and in our world that help us to have good health, and all these herbs that have these different functions on the human body. And so if Adam and Eve didn't sin, would we have even needed all these things? I just think that's interesting. But for whatever reason, he did create herbs and plants that do different things for the human body, and there are herbs that increase testosterone. It's not a mystery, it's not a secret, it's not unproven like the medical community wants to claim that all herbs are not studied or unproven. It's a complete lie. These herbs are known to increase testosterone in men, and men take them all the time. In fact, there were football players that used to get certain herbs from me because they knew it would help with their performance and their testosterone, and it wouldn't show up on a blood test. Deer antler was actually controversial in the NFL for a while because athletes were taking it and they're saying, well, you shouldn't be taking that because that's performance enhancing, but it was created by God. So it's just funny. So there's three main herbs. There's more, but I'm going to give you three main herbs that specifically increase testosterone in men, just taking these herbs by themselves. The first one I'm going to mention is called, where'd it go? The first one is Tongkat Ali. Cedar bear has a great Tongkat Ali, and this is an extract of Tongkat Ali. It's a concentrate, 200-to-1 concentrate. I don't know if I wrote that on my sheet or not. 200-to-1 concentrate of Tongkat Ali by Raw Forest Foods, and this is a Tongkat Ali by Cedar Bear. Cedar Bear told me, I don't know if they still do, but they used to sell this by the gallon to a bodybuilding group. And the claim to fame of this bodybuilding group is they were 100% natural. They used no synthetics, no chemicals, everything natural. And they bought Tongkat Ali by the gallon because it increases testosterone and performance and all the things that men want. And so Tongkat Ali, the best known herb for testosterone. Deer antler, I say, is the best overall herb just for longevity, for anti-aging, because it helps regrow new cells, new nerves. I gave it to my wife when her back was injured, and it helped heal her spine. But it increases testosterone. It's great for pain conditions. It's great for bones and joints. Women love it because it helps with hair, skin, and nails. Again, if you're a man, it'll increase your testosterone. If you're a woman, it won't unless you need it, because God designed you, and he knows how these things all work together. But God did not design petrochemical pharmaceutical drugs. That's why if you take those, they cause cancer, because they're forcing something to happen in your body whether you like it or not, because there's no intelligence. There's only intelligence through God's creation and God's design. So deer antler, the second herb, well known for increasing testosterone, and the other one is tribulus. I don't think I have just tribulus by itself here, but you can take tribulus in liquid form, capsule form. 3 main herbs I know of that will increase testosterone in men. I'm going to mention maca. Maca is also known to increase hormones, but maca has been used for probably 15 years now. It's been popular to help with hormone balancing. So men like it for, again, strength, stamina, endurance, helps with mood elevation. They've studied this. This is what it says: adrenal hormone balance, sexual health, energy levels, cardiovascular health, so it has an action on the heart too, strength and endurance, and fertility. Maca is probably the main herb I give to men and women when they want to get pregnant. And I usually give them a pituitary formula, because remember I said the pituitary produces fertility hormones, and a lot of those hormones are precursor for things like testosterone in men. So for men and women, the pituitary is the main gland that produces hormones that lead to fertility and to producing hormones that men need or that women need. So you can take I have a product called Healthy Pituitary by Dr. Morse. But this maca is a great overall, if guys want just one thing that's going to help with strength, stamina, endurance, longevity, sexual function, fertility. I really like the maca librium. It's by a company called NHI. There's an herb, I might have put the wrong thing in there. There's an herb called Mucuna puriens. Mucuna is a natural source of L-dopa, which is a dopamine precursor. There's another herb called pine pollen, which I do have here. This is cracked cell wall pine pollen, a 10-to-1 concentrate. These are both raw forest foods. This is pine pollen. Like, this is literally the pollen that falls off the pine tree that makes your jacket all yellow, or that's on your car or on your picnic table. It's the yellow pine pollen. Well, what is pine pollen? It's the male part of the tree. It's like the sperm. I mean, so God created plants and animals to reproduce, and he created animals to reproduce, and there's a way that that happens. But it's really interesting. Pine pollen is like sperm. And so this stuff goes into, what's the female part of the plant, of a pine tree? The pine cone. The pine cone opens up, the pollen goes in there, it closes up, and you create new life. Pretty interesting. But because this is the male part of the reproductive cycle of the tree, it has androgynous hormones in it. Now again, men or women can take this safely, but usually encourage men to take it. It's one of the only known sources of DHEA, which is the joy hormone. In other words, men take this, they're going to feel increased testosterone, increased DHEA, better adrenal function. It's going to help with all of these things related to mood and performance. So I really like the pine pollen for that. A couple of products that help just in general with men's hormones, especially thinking about sexual function and libido, because that's a big issue for a lot of men. You don't want to take a Viagra. I mean, it's so dangerous, but again, men don't know a lot of other options, so they do it. This is called Libido Lift for Men. And Libido Lift for Men has in it yohimbe, epimedium, which they put in epimedium, which is cool because that's a Latin name, because the other name for it is horny goatweed. And a lot of people, that just makes them laugh. Muirapuama, catawaba bark, guarana, prickly ash bark, ginkgo, stinging nettle, maca root. This is a great just libido function support for men. This Forza is good too, and what's different about the Forza for men is it has L-arginine in it. And L-arginine is an amino acid that's a vasodilator, so it opens up blood flow to the area. So if you're thinking about increasing sexual function, for a lot of men, they just have damaged arteries or poor circulation, maybe because of alcohol or sugar or their diet or whatever, and so they're not getting proper good blood flow. If you don't have good blood flow, you're not going to have good hormone production, you're not going to have good sperm count, you're not going to have good motility. Motility is a big deal. Like, there's millions of sperm that are injected, and then like the swimmers, are they able to get to the egg? And so these things increase blood flow. So that's why this formula works for sexual function, because it has the maca in it. It's got the epimedium, which is the horny goatweed, but it also has the DHEA and the L-arginine. And so that's a pretty cool formula for men's hormones too. The other thing I'll mention for men is minerals. And without getting into a super in-depth conversation about minerals, I'm going to mainly talk about 3. Magnesium, because every human person needs it. We're deficient in it. People's lives change when they take magnesium. It just helps people feel calm, relax. It helps with the stress issue. It helps with cramping, and on down the list. But the 2 main minerals for men I would focus on is zinc and copper. And if you look at male pattern baldness, if you look at what they call alopecia, if you look at testosterone function, if you look at prostate health, you'll hear a lot of talk about zinc especially. And the pumpkin oil I've been giving them in for years. It's a concentrated pumpkin oil, but it's high in vitamin E and zinc. And so zinc is in a lot of seeds, nuts and seeds. So like pine pollen, what are nuts and seeds? The reproductive part of the plant. So same thing. They're going to help with nutrients like vitamin E, which they call the fertility vitamin, and other nutrients and minerals that are going to help promote health and life in the human body. And so the pumpkin oil is a good source of zinc. This is raw zinc by Garden of Life. I really feel like most any man can benefit from taking zinc. It's in every cell of the human body. We need it. The other main one is copper. And this is a product called Synergy that I really like. But copper and zinc both are known to help men with hair growth. Copper specifically is known to help men with hair growth. If you look at a lot of men's hair growth formulas, you'll see copper in there. It'd be weird to think that we're copper deficient, but we actually are. It's because it's not in our food supply anymore like it used to be. It's not in the plants, and plus a lot of us just don't eat good. And so we actually get deficient in copper. But copper is in every cell of the body, and the cells can't communicate, and they can't detox properly without copper. And so this is a product that's actually specifically designed to increase energy at the cellular level to actually stimulate the mitochondria of the cell to function properly. And so besides the copper in it, it's got N-acetylcysteine, NAC, which is a precursor to glutathione, which is an antioxidant that's needed in every cell of the body for detox. It has CoQ10 in it. It's got some B vitamins in it. And so this is actually a great product for energy, but it's a great product for men, for hormones, for everything related to male health. It's called Synergy. That's a good one. And I think that was it on the products. The other zinc I have is this aqueous zinc. It's just a liquid zinc. The funny thing about zinc is you can know if you need it or not by tasting it. If you taste it and it tastes like metallic, like, oh my gosh, that's disgusting, why did you just give that to me? You have plenty of zinc in your body. If you taste it and it has no taste, you're deficient in zinc. So they call it the zinc taste test. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Okay, so that covers just some of like specific testosterone herbs, specific formulas for sexual function and libido, and I threw the minerals in there, again the highlighted zinc and copper because they are crucial for male hormonal function, for cellular function, for energy, but maybe also for men's hair loss as well, but also energy in the body. So just as a summary, and I kind of already said it before I had this big summary written out, so I'm not going to say what I already said completely, but I do just want to make that point again that God designed women to be women and to function a certain way. And God designed men to be men and to function a certain way. And you can just look around at our culture and see how many health issues we're having, how many hormonal imbalances issues we're having, how many fertility issues we're having, how many weight problems and diabetes and food addiction issues we're having. And we can see clearly, and we can blame the enemy, and I do. I mean, the devil's really tricky. Like, why would we be putting man-made chemicals in our body and doing vaccinations and doing pharmaceutical drugs like if we had any clue of God's creation and design? We wouldn't be doing any of those things. So the devil's very tricky. But ultimately, we are the stewards of God's temple. We are the indwelling place for the Holy Spirit. And if you don't think God's jealous for the health of your body, again, you're wrong. You're deceived. You know, the Bible talks very clearly on taking care of our bodies and stewarding our bodies and honoring our bodies. Paul talks about it the most. And so we need women and men to choose differently. to choose an intentional lifestyle, to choose to exercise because you don't live on a farm and you don't have to farm to feed your family and you don't get it naturally. You have to be intentional about doing it. To choose to eat healthy food because it's so easy to eat the junk and the sugar and the sweets that we're addicted to and fast food because it's convenient. To be intentional about putting things in our body that actually promote life. And if you don't think it's going to foster a deeper relationship with God, again, I believe we're mistaken and we're misled. God is jealous for His creation. That's as simple as it is. He's jealous for His creation. And so we have to live an intentional lifestyle. I have to live an intentional lifestyle. Like I said, I've been convicted just doing the notes for this class that, oh my gosh, there's some things I need to be more intentional about. And I have this conversation with teenagers all the time, these teenage young men who don't care what they eat. Everybody eats pizza, so who cares? And they're playing video games. They're doing what the popular culture does. Doing what the popular culture does is not going to strengthen your relationship with God. You know, it's turning away from popular culture that's going to create intimacy with God. And I believe nutrition and caring for our bodies is a piece of that puzzle that has been missing from the body of Christ that the God will restore for raising up people who are going to be prepared for the end times, which is coming sooner than most people probably think. So it is time to live an intentional lifestyle, and I hope some men watch this. In Jesus' name, amen. Make all your men watch this video. And I'll have to rewatch it myself to get motivated. I actually get them up the same day or the next day. Did anybody have any questions before Mike stops it?